If you want to do realistic painting, accuracy is very important in getting a likeness. I'm going to show you a method I use by finding reference points on the subject and matching them on the canvas. I'm showing you this quick sketch in real time so you can see this in action. Now, a reference point can be anything notable on the subject, like the bridge of the nose, a corner of the mouth, a strong crease in the face, etc. Here I am judging the angle and distance between the eyes and show how they relate to the tip of the nose. In the beginning, I keep the reference points very vague, because as I get more things to judge by, they will become more accurate. As you progress, you will probably find many are not correct anymore, and you need to revise them. When I feel they're pretty close to correct, I make them a little stronger, but I still keep checking back and forth as I work all around the painting. I sometimes make a circle around the tip of the nose to judge its position, but it's only a rough mark. I'm interested in making little notes of as many references as I can find. Even the mouth is a rough placement until I get more other marks to judge by. Even though most of the ear is hidden, I can still use the base of the nose to judge where it should be. I had very little to judge by in the beginning, but now I could see the shape of the forehead is too big, so I kept adjusting the edges, little by little, to get the size related to the rest of the face. Here I was matching the ends of the mouth to where they related to the eyes. That's a strong cheek shadow, so I marked it pretty well. The angle of the neck seemed to line up with the face, but over a little. And I tend to make the neck length a little longer than what I see, especially on women. It just looks better. Well, here I am moving the edges of the forehead a little closer, but I don't want to get it too small. Then have to revise it back out again. The position of the eyes looks pretty accurate, so I strengthened the marks a little and threw in a few marks for the shadow side of the nose. It wasn't very accurate though, and I spent some time later moving it over. Where the cheek rolls over into shadow is an important thing to mark, just lightly. Here I am doing more thinking than painting, mentally measuring the marks I have so far to see if they're okay or if they need to be moved. For me, they're rarely perfect the first time I put them down. The strong eyebrows were a great reference point, so I made sure they were painted that way. Most of the hair is lost in the dark background, so I keep my reference notes very vague. This rough sketch took about a half an hour, and I wanted to keep this video short, so I skipped through some of the activity. What I've tried to show is how I think about finding and noting reference points to guide me in getting an accurate foundation for a painting. Here is some more thinking rather than painting. Is the space between the eyes about right? I think I got the eyebrow coming too far down on the nose. Have to fix that later. Strengthening up the bottom edge of the beard and that strong shadow on the neck. I think here is where I noticed that the bridge of the nose was not right, and the angle of that cheek shadow needs correcting. Here I am working on that hairline again. I never did get that exactly right until the very end. I think you're beginning to see now that as many times as I have done this, I still make mistakes. What makes the difference is how much I keep going over and over to find and correct those mistakes. That's where hours and hours of practice helps you learn to see those mistakes more quickly. I'm sure there are other artists who can nail these reference points right on the first time. I'm just not that good. But it's the end result that matters anyway. Well, I finally noticed that eyebrow came down too far and made a correction. Still not perfect, but I'll keep revising it all the way to the finish. And I'll keep checking all around the painting, checking and strengthening reference points that I think look right, and moving the ones that don't. Notice there are no areas like the nose or the mouth or eyes that have been taken to a finished detail yet. That's asking for trouble. Getting a beautiful finished rendition of an eye at this point, for instance, then noticing that it's not quite in the right place, can ruin your day. You know what happens next. If you value your reputation, you'll wipe it out and start over. Bummer. After a few more hours of checking and repainting areas that were not quite right, I finalized this foundation with everything as accurate as I could get it. The background was also finished, so I could better judge the colors for the finished portrait, confident that everything was exactly where it belongs. Now that you have seen how I get an accurate foundation sketch, I'll go into great detail about setting up just a few of these references so you can understand the process. For the demonstration, I will be using only a small portion of a face, but understand, this procedure is used all over the painting from the very start of the foundation sketch. Here I'll use just 3 reference points, the pupils of the eyes and a nostril. I'll be using dots to show you the reference points, as you see here, but in reality I will sketch what the points look like. And for this demo, I will remove the face so it's easier to see what I'm doing. In reality, you'll be looking at the actual face and judging the points as you paint. Looking at the left eye, I mark that spot on my canvas about where that eye would be. Then I look at the angle to the other eye reference and start fishing around to get the same angle as I see on the subject. When I see the angle is about right, I mark another dot, about how far I think that dot is away. The distance is relative to how much bigger or smaller your painting will be compared to the subject you are painting. I'll say more about that later. Then I look at an angle for the next pair of reference points and fish around until I get that about right and make another mark. Now this distance between the dots is very important. It's related to the distance you used for the first pair of dots. If the distance for the first pair is the same as on the subject, then this pair should also be the same as the distance on the subject. But if, let's say, the first distance was about half as long as on the subject, then this one must also be half the distance you see on the subject. That makes sense, right? Now I can cross-check my accuracy by also looking at the angle from the second dot to the third dot. You can see I was a little off. No problem. Just move the new dot over to where it belongs. Now if we look at the triangle we made between the 3 dots, we can see how well the 2 shapes match. If it's off, you can see it right away. Also, you can now see how much bigger or smaller your new group of reference points is than the original subject. It doesn't matter as long as the sizes of the distance are related. I know this seems like a long, complicated process, but it's not. Explaining it took a while, but after you have learned how to do this, your brain will do hundreds of these measurements and calculations in milliseconds. You'll be amazed at how well it works. Of course, getting an accurate foundation for your portrait is very important, but it is only a part of the whole process of painting portraits. Check out more of my short videos, and if you want to buy a few of my longer DVD and download videos, go to my website, www.irvrudley.com. And don't forget to have fun painting.